On today's project, we'll be drafting a basic dress block. Hello everyone, you're welcome to another tutorial. Thank you all for your time and your support. And if you're just joining us, you haven't subscribed yet, or you have joined us a long time, you haven't subscribed yet, please could you consider subscribing? So let's get started. So what I'm marking out here is the dress length. Now this could be from your shoulder to whatever desired length you want. It could be short, 3/4 or long. So next up is the body's front, or some call it half length. Some even use the back waist length. So it all depends on whatever term that you're used to. So I'm working with 17 inches here. Next is the waist to hip measurement, 8.5 inches. And this will serve as the hip line. And the half shoulder measurement is 8 inches. That's what I'm marking out here. And then 1/5 of the round neck measurement of 3 inches. So the shoulder slope is 1 inch. And then we draw the shoulder seam. So next we insert the armhole measurement, or half of the armhole or arm side depth measurement, 9 inches. And we square a line. So whatever that we marked out on the shoulder, the 8 inches, we're still going to mark the same 18 inches here. And marking down 1.5 inches for the bust point. So let's label, this is the bust point, the waistline, and the hip line. So let's go ahead and insert the quarter circumference, or circumference of the bust, the waist, and the hip. So here I'm marking out 10 inches because the bust circumference is 40. And then the quarter waist circumference of 8 3/4, and then the quarter hip circumference of 10 1/4. So whatever we have at this point here on the hip line, we are going to measure the same thing on the hem line. So I'll be coming down by 1/2 inch on the waistline, because the front waistline or body's front is usually longer than the back body's back. So this is our true waistline. Whatever measurements will be taken on the waist will be taken on that new line. So I'm marking the midpoint on the armhole, coming in by 0.5. So at this angle right here, we're going to go in diagonally at 3/4 of an inch. So the next thing is to insert the bust span, half of the bust span. We insert it on the bust point, the new waistline, and on the hip line. So on the hip line, I'll be taking up 2 inches up, and then on the bust line coming down by 1 inch, and the dart intake is 1.5, so 3/4 on either side of this mid dart line. So this basic block is going to consist of 2 types of darts, the side seam dart and the waist dart. So you can use both or one. So I'm determining the midpoint on the side here from the armhole to the waistline. You can just divide or just use your tape to divide and mark. So we're going to square a line to the bust point. And then take down 1 inch away from the bust point. Mark 1 inch away from the bust point rather. And that intake here will be half an inch on either side of the mid dart line. So like I said, you can use both the darts or just use one, either the side dart or the waist dart. So I'm marking down the neck depth. Now I'm marking out 4 inches. This also depends on your preference. And then going in here by 3/4. I just want to draw a short straight line before drawing the neck curve. And then I'm increasing the neck width by 2 inches. So like I said, it depends on you. Just be creative about your neckline, the kind of neckline you want. It could be V neckline, square neckline, sweetheart, whatever kind of neckline. So next I'm marking out half an inch shoulder allowance. And then at the armhole also, I'm going to be marking half an inch as well. So for the bust points, the bust line, I'm adding 1.5 seam allowance. The waist, we took 1.5 for our dart plus 1.5 seam allowance, making 3 inches. The hip no dart was taken, so I'm just marking 1.5 seam allowance. Now on the side seam, remember we took 1 inch for the side seam dart. You have to replace that on whatever length you're working with. So since it's a 3/4 length here, I'm marking the 1 inch there and then plus 1 inch hem allowance. Even if your project is just stopping at the waist, you just have to replace the 1 inch side dart, whatever side dart that you're working with, so your garment will not be short. The front one will not be shorter than the back bodies. So I'm just chewing the seam allowance on the armhole. For the hemline, whatever that we mark on the hip line is the same thing that we're going to mark on the hemline. the same measurement. So our pattern is ready. It's time to cut out. So I'll not be cutting out the neckline because I might work with another type of neckline. So I'll just leave the neckline like that, the depth. I'll just cut out the other parts so you can see. Next we begin the back bodies. So I've gone ahead to mark out the starting point and the zipper allowance, the space for the zipper allowance. So let's insert the dress length of 44 inches. It's basically the same thing with the front pattern, just that some things are quite different from the front one, the front bodies. So the half length of body's front, 17 inches. Waist to hip measurements of the same, 8.5 inches. So next is half of the shoulder measurement of 8 inches. And then 1/5 round neck measurement of 3 inches. And then 1 inch for the shoulder slope. So we're marking down the armhole depth, 9 inches. So this is the waistline, hip line, chest line or bust line. So whatever we mark at the shoulder, the 8 inches, we are going to mark it here. And we square a line to form our arm side depth or armhole depth. Next we take the bust circumference, quarter bust circumference, and then quarter waist circumference, quarter hip circumference. So I'm determining the midpoint on the arm side depth or armhole depth. And then I'm taking 1.2 inches diagonally. This is to help with the armhole curve. So the bust span here, half of the bust span on the chest line, the waist line, and on the hip line. The dart intake here is 1 inch, so ½ inch on either side of the mid dart line, and then taking up 2 inches from the hip line and coming down. Oh, no need to come down here, sorry. So we just go ahead and draw the dart legs. So on the waistline, we are going to take in 3/4 of an inch. Now this is to eliminate zipper bulge. You see some garments when sewn, if this is not done, you see the zipper bulging out at the back. So now this will eliminate that. We are still going to go ahead and mark 1 inch for our zipper allowance. So I'll be extending the neck width by 2 inches, just like I did the front. And then the neck depth 1.5. And like I said earlier, you could do whatever kind of neckline you want. You just be creative and do whatever works for you. So like for instance, you want to make like a V neckline, you could just do that also. So I'm just like showing you an example of whatever you can do with your neckline. So this is V neckline, though I'll not be cutting the neckline out as well. Now this is so that I can adjust or make whatever neckline I want to whenever I'm ready. So now I'm inserting the zipper allowance. You also watch the way I'm taking the allowance, marking the 1 inch allowance. That part will not be straight because it's kind of curvy. So we take the seam allowance, and here is going to be 2.5, 1 inch for that, and then 1.5 seam allowance, so making 2.5 inches. Here is the same 1.5, no that was taken there. And whatever we mark here on the hip line, like I said the first time, we're going to mark that also on the hem line. So this is 11.9. The same thing that was on the hip line, also on the hem line. So the hem allowance is 1.5. This is the zipper allowance, so don't get confused. So I forgot to draw that down also, but it doesn't matter anyways. So, and I'm marking the same 1/2 inch for the shoulder allowance and the armhole allowance. So our pattern is ready. Let's cut it. I'm going to leave the neckline like the way it is. I won't cut out the neckline simply because I might decide to change the kind of neckline I want to do. So this brings us to the end of our tutorial. This is the front and the back bodies. Now if you find this video useful, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. For your time, have a good day.